We don't have a lot of time because we're going to kind of wrap up expeditiously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you a promise. And I'm going to make you the same promise that my grandmother made her 8th husband. And that's simply, I won't keep you long. Some of you guys get that later. All right, so, hey, listen, it is what it is. The interesting thing about this, I've been speaking for the last 25 years, and I always try to write my speech. I always try to rehearse. But in what it is we do, there is no perfect script for this. Because when you're here for 3 primary reasons, I think we're here for purpose. I think we're here to live life with passion. And I think we're here for presence. That while we're here on this planet, we're here to make something happen. We're here to do something. We're here to be a higher level of service to humanity. And for a kid like me, whose mother was 24 years of age, who was a drug abuser, who was in a prostitution, who had mental issues, my mother couldn't take care of me. So at 24, my mother had to make a very critical decision. Do I keep 2 young men, my older brother and myself, or do I put them into foster care? And my mother decided that in 1968 that she would keep my older brother and put me into foster care. For the first 7.5 years of my life, I was in various foster homes, shuffled around the inner city of Dayton, going from foster home to foster home. And at the age of 7.5, I was adopted. And my foster parents, my last set of foster parents, were the ones who adopted me, but they were a little bit different. They were what we call old school. Everybody say old school. Which simply means my adopted father was born in 1918. Yeah, make fun of my dad. That's cool. Whatever. Okay. And somebody's like, oh my God. Okay. So, and my mother was born in 1930. So in those days, my father was an ex-Marine. My father was a blue-collar worker. My adopted father never made a lot of money. But what my father did, he went to work every day, and he gave us a sense of stability. My father had 1 child prior with his former marriage, and my adopted mother had 5. So there are 7 of us all together, but I was the only one at home. I was the baby. And I wish I could tell you that my adoptive experience was all grand. It wasn't. There were some trials and there were some tribulations. I'm a 9th grade high school dropout. I was physically, mentally, sexually abused. I was in and out of various gangs. I was not a very good student. I had a very, very low self-esteem, and I never thought in my mind that I could ever be anything significant because I thought that kids like me, nobody loved. So I didn't understand that I had the first P, and what I want to talk about, I didn't think I had a purpose. Until one day when I walk into a 3rd grade classroom and a special education teacher comes out and tells us that we are significant. And see, being a special ed kid, I failed the 3rd grade, and so they said, well, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett, he was in foster care. Well, you can't really expect too much out of foster children because, you know, we need to kind of put him in a different category because that's how those children are. So even in 1976, 1977, the stereotype of how these kids that you serve, it was there back then and it's still there now. The only difference of whether these kids will succeed or fail for some of them will be your passion and what it is you do. And I know that what you do is hard. I know sometimes you ask yourself, am I making a difference? The budget crunches, the things that we go through, the kids who get older and older and older, who are harder and harder to get adopted. And sometimes we question ourselves, am I making a difference? Does what I do matter? Let me share this with you. It does. Because if it wasn't for people like you, I would be dead. I would be in prison. I would have 30 kids by 30 different women. The stereotypical things that they say about the population of kids that we serve, I would be that guy, but I am not because you told me that I was something bigger. Purpose. Significance. I never dreamed in a million years that I'd be doing what I'm doing today. I had no clue that the man upstairs would shift me to this position, but I'm here, and I'm alive, and I am breathing, and I am still standing. I am strong because you told me that it was possible. Do not ever underestimate the power that you have in what it is you do, because what you do matters. Everything you say, everything you do, it matters. And in this life, it's about doing something that matters, having a higher sense of purpose. Because when you have purpose, you have everything. See, when I walked into that classroom, there were 12 of us. And I sat in the 3rd row, and I asked myself in 1977, why am I here? What is my purpose? Why am I here? What did I do to deserve this? Why did my real mother want me? Why is my adopted father, why is he distant from me? Why does my adopted mother, why does she, fight all the time? And so, and I'm not here to rain on a parade, but I'm here to let you know that sometimes, as we go into different families, we all have struggles. In my adopted family, they had a struggle, but the one thing that family did for me, it gave me a sense of stability. And it put me in a position to meet the lady that you saw in the video, because I was not supposed to meet her. Because see, the day that she showed up to school that day, she wasn't supposed to be there. Her husband was a superintendent, but somehow when her daughter got sick, her husband took her to the doctor. So when I walked in with my father holding my hand, she walks around the corner, and she later tells me that when her eyes met, she knew that she was supposed to be a part of my life. It is called destiny. You feel it. It's something that's inside all of us. It's that intuition that we know, that we know, that we know. And sometimes we cannot explain it, but we show up. Because in the way that the world works, or the universe, or however you believe, everybody's here for something bigger. So I walk into that third grade classroom, and I'm sitting in the middle of the row, and I remember asking myself all these questions. And I look around, there was another kid named Russell who was the third African American in the school. I went to a predominantly white school, and I felt alienated because nobody wanted to play with me, and I felt kind of distant. But there was Russell, but nobody spoke to Russell, because every time Russell would speak, he would stutter. And then there was little Jessica, who was over there, who was also in the foster care system, and she had all these lesions all over her body. But see, the reason she had those lesions is because that's where her father would put out his cigarettes. And we were traumatic. We went through so much damage and so much trauma as young kids. But see, despite all that, when Miss Ritchie walked into the room, and she says, "Welcome to room 315. I am so glad that you're in our kingdom. And if you are a male, you are a king. And if you are a female, you are a queen. And I bow before royalty." Now here's the problem about that. Crack cocaine wasn't out back then. So we knew that maybe she can't be on crack. You know what? What is she smoking? Because listen, nobody talks to kids like that, not like to us. Nobody talks to us like that, but she did. She changed the whole paradigm of how we thought about ourselves. She looked at us, and she did not see what she saw then. She looked into the future and saw what we could become. And from that vantage point, she inspired and she taught us. And it made all the difference. And for a whole year, this teacher inspired us to be better, to be more than we ever thought possible, because she looked into the future and saw a vision of us, of where she wanted us to be, not where we were right then. It's a powerful concept, but it worked. And for the first time in my young life, I began to believe in myself. I began to believe that I can be anything that I wanted to be. I began to believe that nothing was impossible. And I remember she told me that everything one day would be significant. Everything would be okay if I always kept my chin up. And I believed, everybody say believe, that I believed that where I wanted to be was where I could go. Now here's the thing. In what it is we do, the belief factor in what it is we do is so very, very crucial. Because the reality of what we do sometimes taunts and it tarnishes our perception of what's really real, because of what we see and what we feel and what's going on around us. But there are those people in the world who believe that when you operate from a higher sense of purpose and from a higher sense of consciousness, what you see in front of you doesn't always have to be the reality. And that is powerful. I know your stories. I know your struggles. I know some of you guys are out there fighting every day, advocating for kids, and sometimes you doubt yourself. Sometimes you question if what you do works, especially when you don't get what it is you're trying to go for. But see, that is just part of the illusion. That is part of the process. That is part of the game. Because in what it is we do, failure is part of the process. Get over it. It's just the way it is. And I don't say that to be mean, but sometimes we got to understand we cannot do this and not go through some adversity. But see, the great thing about what it is we do is that when we understand that we're here for a greater sense of purpose, then we can operate with the second P, which is a greater sense of passion. Can you guys tell that I love what I do? I love it. I mean, I love this. I live and breathe to be in front of people like you, because I am here. I am living because you exist. We're all interconnected. We're all here for something greater. And yes, I do watch Oprah. I'm sorry. So yes, I'm an Oprah fan. And one thing she says that all of us, that our life is like a fingerprint, and that it is unique as a fingerprint. And when we find out what we're here to do, and we operate with purpose and passion, greater things are yet to be seen. I'm not a very smart guy, I don't think. I don't think that was a very good student in school, but I do know that one teacher inspired me to be better, and she was a catalyst that changed everything. Because see, in 1986, when I was in my room because I was trying to get out of a gang, and my adoptive mother had passed away when I was 14, and my father became an alcoholic, and I'm in and out of juvenile jail trying to figure out what am I going to do with the rest of my life. And I held a 9mm gun in my right hand because suicide was my only option. I was tired, I was depressed, and I was going to end it. And I had this gun, and I'm holding this gun, and I'm trying to put it to my head. And every time I put it to my head, I would hear the voice of Miss Ritchie telling me that I was significant. I would hear her telling me that one day it was possible that I would be something bigger and better. I heard a voice telling me that don't look at the bad things, always look at the good things. And every time I would put that gun in my head and I would hear her voice, I would take the gun down. And I remember the last time I put the gun to my head, I put it to my head and I started to squeeze the trigger and my telephone rings and it breaks my concentration. And it was a ring that totally changed my life. And see, sometimes in what it is you do for your children, you're the ones that will be that ring in their life to give them a sense of hope, whether you get them in an adopted home or not. Sometimes we're not going to get every kid adopted, even though that's our goal. But your interaction with these kids, your love, your compassion, your belief in them sometimes will be enough to get them over the hump of negativity. It works, believe me. There's been many times in my life when I've tried to just go over the edge, but there will be a person, a mentor, a teacher, someone like you who told me that I was bigger and better, that I didn't have to do that, so I had to make that choice, and I pulled back. And when my telephone rings, my best friend is on the other end of the line, and I pick up the phone. I said, Reggie, I said, I'm tired, man. He said, Garrett, what's going on? I said, I got this gun, and I'm going to do this thing. He said, what are you talking about? He says, you got a gun? What? He says, hold on a minute. I'll be over. Just hold on. And sometimes we got to tell our kids just to hold on, that help is coming, that there's a brighter future for them. And when my friend shows up 5 minutes later, he walks up to my room, and he sees my gun in my hand, and I thought my friend was there to save me, but he said no. He said, if this is the way you want to check out, that's fine, Mark. But everything that you tried to do in your life successfully, people have told you that you can't. You're 18 years old and you're still alive. And where I grew up in the west side of Dayton in the inner city, it was catastrophic. Because when you live in Section 8 housing and you have gangbangers and you have people shooting and people selling drugs and you walk out your door, you don't know if you're going to survive. You have no idea. But somehow in my life, despite everything that I went through, something kept me safe. Something kept me moving forward to the ascension of the apex of my greatness, and it was what happened in 1977 by what one woman did when other people told her what she did didn't matter. And my friend looks at me with this gun, and he says, if you want to kill yourself, so be it. But everybody who's told you that you're nothing, if you die today, they win and you lose. And in a matter of a week, nobody will even remember your name. It will be like you never even mattered. It will be like you never existed. My friend turns around, he walks down my steps, he gets in his car, and he takes off. And I'm sitting there with a very critical decision to make. Do I live or do I die? But I can't do both. I've got to make a decision. And as tears started streaming down my face, I became very conscious of my heartbeat. And I remember one time when Miss Ritchie came into the classroom, I was very frustrated. I just had a very bad day. And she put her hand on my heart and she says, I feel that. I feel you. Your heart is beating life, son. You are important. You are significant. You have a greater sense of purpose. And as I was sat there crying with this gun in my hand and hearing her words, a poem came to mind by Robert Frost that says, somewhere ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I chose the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And all of a sudden, something said, breathe. And then a voice said, breathe. And then a voice said, breathe. And I knew at that moment that I didn't know how I was going to make it out of that situation. I didn't know where I was going to end up. But I knew that if I just continued to focus on my breathing, that maybe life itself could work it out for me. Maybe the destiny of my life could begin to allow me to see that I had a greater sense of purpose. And in 1986, I put down the gun and I began to live. All because of people like you who inspire kids to be better. That is an amazing, amazing gift to have. When you go home today and you look in the mirror at yourself, be proud about what you do. Be proud that you are here. Be proud that you showed up. Be proud that you are here for something bigger, because all of you are important. The thousands of kids that you are impacting, well, I'm sorry, it's really not thousands of kids. It is hundreds of millions of kids. Because in what it is we do, if we get one child over that hump, whether it's in an adopted family or giving them words of inspiration, and they succeed, there are yet generations unborn who will be affected by what it is you do. My kids are different because of what you do. Their kids will be different because of what you do and what I've taught them and what was instilled in me by people like you. And Miss Ritchie, she was the catalyst, but there were many, many others. There were mentors. There were CASA volunteers. There were guardians ad litem who infiltrated into my life, who inspired me to be the person I am today. And I am forever grateful, because statistically, I shouldn't be here. But you told me that I could. So my success is your fault. But anyway, but it's all about this thing as we look at it. We call it perception. Perception is looking at something and understanding that what you see doesn't always have to be the reality. I dreamed of the Dave Thomas Foundation. I dreamed of speaking here. I never knew how to do it. I've spoken all over the country, all over the world, but I never knew how I would be able to be here on this stage today, but I never stopped believing. And then one day I'm in a place called Portland, Oregon. And this wonderful director was there giving a keynote speech. And I went up to her afterwards. I said, my name is Mark Anthony Garrett. I'm from Columbus. She was like, you're from Columbus too? We did a high five. And it's amazing. What are the chances of that? I'm from Reynoldsburg. Really, me too? And we start talking. And I told her, I said, you know, I really followed your organization for years. I said, if there's ever an opportunity for me to help or to be of service, let me know. And we exchanged cards, and I really didn't think any more about it. And then this lady named Jackie Wilson, she gives me a call. And if you guys know Jackie, Jackie is what we call a ball of raging enthusiasm. I mean, she's like a bottle of lightning, like a bottle of sunshine. And I'm like, man. So she calls me and she's like, Mark Anthony Garrett. I'm like, yes. She's like, Jackie Wilson, one of these wonderful kids, we have a conference coming up and I want to know, will you be interested? And so we start talking. And we start talking, and Jackie is just, I mean, and we're just vibing back and forth. My wife was like, who are you talking to? I'm like, talking to Jackie Wilson, right? So I said, leave me alone. So I'm talking, we're going back and forth, right? And we're so excited. And she says, I tell you what. She says, why don't you come in and meet our team? She says, we don't make a decision without the team. So I came in and I sat down with this group of individuals, and when I walked in, the passion that they had for what it is they do. And they talked about this conference and the people that will be here, and they talked about resiliency, and we talked about love and compassion, and they asked me, what do you do and why do you do what you do? And I explained, I said, I'm just here to be of service. And we kind of talked for a couple months after that, and then they gave me a call and said, hey, would you be here today? That's how life works. Who knew that a young inner city black kid from Dayton, Ohio, who nobody wanted, who was physically, mentally, and sexually abused, 9th grade high school dropout, in and out of gangs, would be here today all because of what you do. What you do works. And I am forever grateful. But see, the perception is so very key. How you think. Great leaders think differently. So let me give you an example. I'm a kind of a science guy, so I like to kind of prove theory. So the tablecloths that you have, what color are they? White. Okay, we're going to try this one more time. We're going to do this in unison. What color are they? What color? What color? Louder. 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 And louder. Now, in unison, please tell me, what do cows drink? Wow. Yep. Very interesting. Cows don't drink milk, man. I'm sorry. They don't. Maybe not here, not in Columbus. But anyway, I mean, now here's the scary thing about that. The scary thing about that is that you guys have been given a gift to protect our children, to place our children, and you're telling me in unison that cows drink milk. I get it. And some of you guys said it with attitude. One was like, milk? What you mean, what cows drink? Milk? No, they don't. So what? I'm just saying. So sometimes people say, well, Mark, baby cows do, but a baby cow is not a cow, it's a calf. In a matter of seconds, I got intelligent, loving people dedicated to placing kids telling me, but it's okay. But it just goes to show that how we look at perception is you have to be very careful who you listen to, what you listen to. The number one thing that you want to listen to is listen to your heart. When you're working with children and you're working in this environment, listen to your heart, because your heart will never steer you wrong. It is that intuition. It is the one thing, it's like an internal mechanism that guides all of us to a higher level of actuality of what it is we can accomplish in life. And as my time starts to wind down, I'll share this with you. The belief level in what it is you do is so very crucial. It's in the mid-60s when President Kennedy came to the world and he says, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the moon. Do you know how absurd that sounded at that time? That we were going to build some contraption. At that time, we didn't have the technology, that we were going to build something that was going to get us from Earth to the moon. But his belief and his ingenuity in putting the idea together that was possible, we know the result of that we ended up on the moon. When we look at placing children, we look at what it is we do, we have to believe bigger than our circumstances, because when we do that, we're able to get some things and do some things that the average person will look at and say, it can't be done. We work in the impossible. But sometimes we have to see the invisible first to accomplish the impossible. I'm here and I dedicate my life to you guys because everything that I do centers around greater sense of service, a greater sense of purpose, a greater sense of passion, which leads us to the last P, and that is presence. Why are you here? Not at this conference, but why are you here on this planet? All of you have been given a gift. All of you guys are volunteering your time to do this work. You could be doing anything else, but yet you do this because it is a greater sense of purpose, and you do it enthusiastically with passion because you showed up and you're here. You matter. That's all the thing people want to know at the end of their life is, what did I do? Did I matter? When I used to work a lot with hospice, I'd ask people who were on their deathbed, what are you thinking about right now? And 99.9% of them would never talk about the money in the bank account. They would never talk about that. They wanted to know, did I matter? Did I matter? Did I show up to do something? Did I tell everybody that I loved them? Did I give all the hugs that I could give? Did I mend old relationships? Did I learn to forgive? Did I do everything and live everything as to the best of my ability? Did I show up? Did I do something better and bigger? Because it's really not about the money. Even though money is important, it's about a greater sense of purpose. Because, see, the greatest commodity that we have on this planet is the hearts and minds and spirit of our children. As I watched those videos, I was inspired. I sit in the back of the room, I'm watching these young people who've been inspired by you and people like you to be where they are right now. It does my heart good. And all of you guys are important. And I don't know you, but I love every one of you. The same way I love Miss Ritchie. And there was a point in my life when I never thought that I could ever tell anybody that I loved them, because I thought that was not macho to do. It's not a guy thing. I love you. And I mean that sincerely from my heart. My kids, the foster kids I work with, the adopted kids I work with, every time I interact with them from either here in America or even when I go to Canada. Any Canadians in the room? What are Canadians? Okay, a few. Okay, Canadians. Tim Hortons, yes. Okay. Only Canadians understand that, all right? Timmy's is a beast in Canada. Eh? Okay, there we go. Right? So I go to Canada all the time. I work with kids all over. And the number one thing that I tell them is that I love them. I love them. I spoke to a group of kids a year ago, and this young lady comes up afterwards, and she says, Mr. Garrett, she says, thank you. I said, thank you for what? She says, you know what my plan was today? I said, no. She says, my plan was to come to this conference that I didn't want to be at. And I was going to go home, and I was going to kill myself today. And she pulls out this letter, and she says, here's my suicide letter. I want you to take it, and I want you to destroy it for me, because after hearing you today, I don't want to die anymore. I want to live. And that young lady is now still living, still breathing, still striving, because somebody in 1977 cared about me enough to tell me what was possible. In 1968, even though my mother put me up, someone took me in and molded me and shaped me. And though my parents, had mistakes and shortcomings, I love both my adopted parents because that family gave me a sense of hope. And the thing hope means is two things: helping other people excel and helping one person every day. It's what we do. It's what we do. helping other people excel, and helping one person every day. So someday, when you look back, some of the kids that you interact with, they're going to come back and they're going to thank you. It may be in Walmart, it may be somewhere, it may be a letter. They will come back because it is impossible for you to do this work and not be blessed in the process. That's not how reciprocity works. Whatever you put out there is going to come back. And you will be inspired, you will be blessed because of this, because of what you do, it matters. So some years ago, I was trying to figure out, how do I thank all these people? How do I thank this woman who inspired me to be better than I ever thought I could be? So I went on this crusade for Miss Ritchie. And I found her in the phone book after about a month. I'm looking back and forth, couldn't find her, hadn't seen her in years. And so I call her, and the phone rings, and her husband picks up and says, hello. I'm like, yes, my name is Mark Anthony Garrett. Is this the residence of Betty Jean Ritchie? He says, yes. Who is this? I said, sir, I'm an old student. My name is Mark Anthony, and I just wanted to know, is she there? Because I wasn't sure if she had passed away. And he says, yeah, she's here. I said, well, can you put her on the phone, but don't tell her it's me. I want to surprise her. So he starts to chuckle, and he puts the phone down. He says, Jean. And she says, yes. He said, well, some guy's on the phone for you. She said, well, who is it? I don't know. Some guy selling carpet. Get on the phone, right? So she gets on the phone, and she picks it up, and she says, hello. And my heart is pounding. And I said, Miss Ritchie? She says, yes. I say, Miss Ritchie, who taught us all about love and compassion, who taught us that one day we will be significant? She says, yes. I said, in 1977, she talked about the kingdom. She painted a greater picture for us. And I kept on talking, and she stops me mid-sentence, and she says, Mark Anthony Garrett. She says, how are you? And I mean, I am like thoroughly shocked because it's like a spiritual moment. And I said, Miss Ritchie, I said, yes. I says, it's Mark Anthony, it's Marky. She just called me Little Marky, right? I said, it's Mark Anthony, it's Marky. And I said, Miss Ritchie, I said, oh my God, I said, I haven't seen you in so long. How did you know it was me? And she was like, Mark, I have caller ID. So, so I was feeling about like this, right? Yep. Couldn't lie about that if I tried. So after she, I'm totally embarrassed, right? I'm like, okay. And I'm like, Miss Ritchie, I'm a professional speaker. La, 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 la. And so I'm so excited. She says, Mark, just calm down. She says, come and see me. So we talked for a little while. We set the date. And she lived in a small town called Fairborn, Ohio. So I drive up to Fairborn. I'm sitting in front of her house. And I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to say? What do you say to the person who inspires you to be better, who helps save your life? And a voice that says, get out, breathe. So I took a deep breath and I knocked on the door. Actually, that was a stage one that we did because we were shooting this film. But the first time I knocked on the door, and she opens up the door. And her face was just so filled with love. And she opened that door, and I hugged her, and I picked her up, and she said, put me down. So I put her down. I picked her up, right? She's like, she's 89 in that picture. I picked her up, right? And I was so excited. I put her down, and we went inside, and we talked about everything. But the most things we talked about was purpose, passion, presence. And she says, I didn't know if I had made a difference. I wasn't sure if the children that I served, when you guys left, what would become of you. I gave everything I did every day because I believed in something bigger than what I saw. And I prayed for you. I believed in you. And I didn't know what would happen, but every day I prayed for all of you. And when I retired from teaching, Mark, I didn't understand if I'd had a greater sense of purpose. But after seeing you today, now I know why I became a teacher. And at that moment, I lost it. And I think for the first time in a long time, I think I cried harder than I'd ever cried before. And she starts crying, and she had a little toy poodle. It's crying. So we're all crying, right? And we're passing these pups around, and I just told her that I loved her. And I got on my knees, and I just thanked her for believing in me. And it's powerful. So when you think that what you do doesn't work, what you think doesn't matter, you have no idea when I work with these thousands of kids around this world, because you told me that I could, it's different. Because speaking is not about the money, it's about inspiration. I'm here because I care about what I do. And I'm sorry that I'm becoming a basket case up here, but it is what it is. I told you I watch Oprah. So, you know, I'm just so excited. I want to thank you for believing in me. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank the wonderful staff and all of you for what it is you do. And when I got ready to leave and I was on my way out the door, she says, Mark, she says, will you fight for them? I said, ma'am. She says, will you fight for all the kids who can't fight for themselves? I'm 89 years old. My time is done. I pass the baton on to you. Will you fight for them? I said, yes, ma'am, I will. She said, it's not going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to feel like quitting. Sometimes you're going to feel like giving up. Sometimes you're going to think that what you do doesn't matter. But will you still fight for them anyway? I said, yes, ma'am. And she got up, and she came up to me, and she hugged me and kissed me on the cheek. And she says, I believe in you. You're significant. So I guess for me, every kid that I can help or every person I can inspire to help kids makes the world a better place, and it gives me validation that I matter. You know, that I exist for something greater than just speaking, that I'm here on this planet for a greater sense of purpose. And I'm living with passion, and I'm trying to be present in every moment that I'm with you guys or people like you, with children. I try to be present. So the only thing that I ask you is when you leave here today, when it gets hard and it gets rough, fight for them. Don't give up. You fight, and you fight, and you fight. And when you do that, the reward is that children will live. You guys are awesome. You are incredible. I love you. And you guys are just amazing. And thank you for helping to save my life. And though this is the kingdom, as Mitch Ritchie did, I bow before you. God bless all of you. You guys are awesome. Thank you.